Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you are subscribed to the Substack DaftOnDraft.Football, where you will get access to all of these charts on Google Drive for every quarterback in the class, access to insider information on the Discord channel, film rooms every single week, live chartings every single week, big boards, positional rankings, more and more. So make sure you are tuned in. Welcome back into another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast. As always, James and Corey back in the saddle, and we've got some free agency fallout to talk about here. So a lot's happened today, money flying all over the freaking landscape of the NFL. But before we dive too far in, James, have you been keeping up with this like in the moment, or are you more of like I'm going to go back and look later?
So normally I am. I have been in like final exam mode because I'm trying to reprogram my draft guide to run fast before the draft actually starts. Should have that done in a couple of days. But yeah, I've just been like listening to the Athletic Football Show and programming all day.
Love it. I love it. So our idea here for this podcast is to go through the draft order and just see what the teams have done, and if it changes kind of like what a consensus player we typically mock their changes, things like that, kind of what the fallout is.
Yeah.
So starting with the Las Vegas Raiders here. Las Vegas Raiders spent a ton of money. 3 years 81 on Tyler Linderbaum, 3 years 48 on Kwity Paye, 3 years 40 and a half on Quay Walker, 3 years 36 on Nakobe Dean, 3 years 35 on Jalen Naylor. They also kept Eric Stokes, Malcolm Kuntz. Obviously, not a lot changes for the Raiders because everybody knows what the Raiders are doing at one. That's not going to be a shock to anybody to see that happen. But I think adding Linderbaum kind of helps the transition. I do think there's a good chance they go out and they get like a Kirk Cousins or like a bridge-ish kind of quarterback if they don't feel like starting Fernando Mendoza right away. But I think adding a center like Linderbaum can even help that transition even more from like a call protection, like a protection call perspective and things like that as well to help him at the line of scrimmage a little bit too.
Yeah, he almost does more to help Ashton Genty have a bounce back season than really like help Mendoza in year one. But I mean, when I look at their O line, it's really like DJ Glaze on the right side that's kind of the weak link. But on paper, it's a much stronger unit than they were rolling out there last year.
Agreed. And then that's about all we need to really talk about. Oh, no, it's not because the Raiders are back on the clock at 14 as well now after the trade of Max Crosby. I don't know if there's anything that they did here that's going to change much about what they could do at 14. I will say the only wide receiver that they've added is Jalen Naylor. So when you sit here and you look at it on paper, 14 could be very easily Mekhi Lemon territory.
Yeah.
That it could be Kenyon Sadiq territory. This is where I think you're really opening up a little bit to take an offensive playmaker.
Could you imagine
To
Kenyon
help
Sadiq
out.
and Brock Bowers?
Yeah, that would be amazing. I obviously forgot about Brock. Like that would be amazing if you just want to build the whole plan out of 12 personnel. Probably not doing that. Go get Omar Cooper. Pair up Mendoza and Omar Cooper again. Like this does feel like very offensive playmaker-ish territory for that team though.
Yeah, they rebuilt linebacker, addressed O-line. Obviously, Kwity Paye is not a replacement for Max Crosby, but I agree. I mean, like every other team, edge and receiver
Yep.
and quarterback end up being their needs. So
Yep. That doesn't change here. Jets, another team with 2 first-round picks here. They do a lot to shore up the defensive front as well here. I think it's kind of put them in the potential to go best player available. And, the kind of rumor on the street has been Arvell Reese for a while, and I don't think anything they did here will dissuade you from thinking that it's Arvell Reese. They signed 2 edge rushers in Kingsley and Igbari, which Igbari gets 1 for 10, which is very much rotational money. That's not like you have to start that guy money, but 3 for 36 with 22 million guaranteed with Joseph Asai, probably starting money right there. So, and again, you also have Will McDonald already on the roster as well. They signed David Onyemata for 1 year for $10.5 million. Bring back Demario Davis, 2 years, $22 million there. And then they trade for Minka Fitzpatrick as well. And then extend him for 3 years, $40 million. So there are some pieces here on the back end. They franchise tag Brees Hall, obviously. Jawan Briggs, who had a really strong year for them, exclusive rights tender. So there's some interesting players. They loaded up on the defensive side of the ball here. I still tend to think that like Reese or Styles is still like a pretty strong selection here. Demario Davis, obviously an older guy, 2 years, 22 million. To me, this screams like I don't know if they're taking an edge after just investing $46 million into edge with Will McDonald already on the roster too. This kind of feels like an Arvell Reese kind of situation.
Yeah, Joseph Asai is the one that gives you like a blend of a floor and some upside. Um, I think outside of that, they didn't really do anything that would adjust my plans for the draft if I
Mhm.
were them. Because I mean, David Onyemata, not a long term piece. Same thing with Enigbari, Demario Davis should have five of Bobby Wagner's All Pros, but he's approaching the end of his career. So I think as far as the draft, pretty much like all options are on the table because you're not going to get edge rushers, elite three techniques, top tier receivers in free agency
Mhm.
usually.
Agreed. Agreed.
But this is like that's what you kind of got to do in that situation
Right.
is attack around the edges, so then you can go and attack those positions in the draft, and you aren't like pick 30, like, oh, we need a tight end or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, wasting around. I think if they can just go like three high ticket positions, it's obviously really hard to hit on them twice like they did in the 2019 class. But
Yeah, we will see who's playing quarterback for them next year. Maybe Gino finally rides back to the Jets. We'll see. But that's going to be the interesting thing here. Speaking of quarterback, Arizona Cardinals gets interesting because they were kind of the rumored favorite to land Malik Willis, and Malik Willis ends up signing with the Dolphins. They instead signed Gardner Minshew for a 1 year, $5.75 million up to 8.25. And it's coming out that now like Jacoby Brissett is this team's starting quarterback. Either this is the tank of all tanks, or like this is a pretty obvious like would they take Ty Simpson at where they come back on the clock early in the second round? Like is this a Ty Simpson team at 34?
yeah,
Like you can't roll into a season with Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew as your quarterbacks.
I
Um,
will say like I like Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier. I like Roy
mhm,
Lopez. He's an underrated defensive
mhm.
tackle. Um, that's really all I got to say though about this haul. I think at 3, like,
Sonny
honestly, I
Styles,
mean, yeah, I agree. Like, if they're I see them get mocked tackles a lot, and Siamalu could complicate, taking Moa Noah if they decided to move him into guard,
right?
but yeah, they're kind of in the same situation where they're like, gonna have to reach for someone,
Mhm.
unless they take Sonny Styles, which would not be a reach.
Right. I tweeted out today. I was like, we live in a reality like where we could legitimately see both of the Ohio State linebackers go 2 and 3 in this draft.
Yeah.
That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, they're 1 and 3 on my board.
Yep. The Tennessee Titans just spent a whole heck of a lot of money again. It seems like they are in the market for spending money every year. But Wandale Robinson, 4 for 78, 38 guaranteed. John Franklin Myers, the NFL's worst kept secret for about a month now. 3 years, $63 million, 42 guaranteed. Alontae Taylor, 3 years, 60. Cordero Flott, 3 years, 45. They just spent $100 million in corners. Daniel Bellinger, love this signing, by the way, 3 for 24. Austin Schlottman, 2 for 9. Cordell Volson, 1 for 4.2. Mitchell Trubisky, Josh Williams, both also signed in reserve ish manner. So they signed 3 corners, actually. But this team, David Bailey's kind of been where we draft for them. There's a lot of like Jeremiah Love smoke out there for this team as well at 4. I think both of those positions or both those players still make sense for this team based on the day one free agency haul that we're talking about here. I don't see much moving off, like changing draft plans for the Titans here. Even Sonny Styles could still be a target here.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would say is like this probably makes it less likely they go corner. in the
Oh, yeah.
second round. But yeah, outside of that, all the options are on the table. They gave a lot of money to, I mean, that's what free agency is. But I don't really know how many like high impact players there are. I mean,
Right.
yikes! I don't. As a Titans fan, I don't know about this all.
Yeah, the Wan'Dale Robinson one's really interesting. That's a lot of money for one. It's like, did you see the tweet that was like, "Brian Dable, what if we signed all of the players that got me fired?"
That's so true. The thing with the Titans is like, and I mean, it's similar with like other bad teams. Is like every year they have so much money in free agency, and I just don't even stress about it because they don't draft good players that like they're gonna eventually have to sign. Like they don't have any big contracts coming up, and it's been that way for probably like 5 or 6 years. So,
Which is an indictment on their drafting ability over the past 5 to 6 years if
oh,
they don't have young
absolutely,
players to
yeah,
resign, yeah. Uh, New York Giants at 5. This is a pretty popular Sonny Styles team. I think signing Tremaine Edmonds for 3 for 36 with 23 guaranteed probably takes them out of the running for drafting a linebacker 5th overall. They do also add Isaiah Likely, 3 years, 40, a punter and Jordan Stout for 3 years, 12. They signed 3 Ravens players, who John Harbaugh's like, "I just want these guys back on my team." And then they did retain probably the biggest one here, Jermaine
great
Illuminor,
deal.
on a great deal, yeah. $13 million a year, and this is another area where we talk about Fano and Moe Noah quite a bit in mock drafts as well. Now we're not gonna talk about Moe Noah or Fano right here for the Giants. I don't know, maybe signing Jermaine Edmonds doesn't take him out of the running for a guy like Sonny Styles. I kind of think it probably does. But again, this also kind of feels like maybe a Jeremiah Love spot as well, especially because of the owner's reaction to
Right.
losing Saquon Barkley on Hard Knocks publicly. Might put them in a position to go after Jeremiah Love here too.
See, we say it like X player takes them out of the running for X position. I always like want to double up at a position. Like you get a great player in free agency. I want to get a like draft somebody really high to like play under them and then grow together. I feel like Sonny Styles could teach Tremaine Edmonds like a thing or two, honestly. But you pair those two, there is not a rangier, more physically imposing duo of players over the middle of the field.
Mhm. Do you know Jermaine Edmonds is only 28 years old in his ninth season in the league or whatever the trope is? Sixth
Ryan
overall, Cleveland
Williams never
Browns.
ages.
Never ages. Cleveland Browns here, nothing here. They signed 2 players, tender a third. Ronnie Hickman they gets a second round tender. They signed Zion Johnson to plug a need along their offensive line, and they signed Quincy Williams here to replace Devin Bush as well, who departed for the Chicago Bears. Browns at 6, we're mocking left tackle and we're mocking wide receiver pretty frequently. There's not a left tackle and there's not a wide receiver on here. They also traded for Titus Howard. That's your right tackle. This still feels like if we're talking about Monroe Freeling's ceiling, we're talking 6th overall.
Mhm.
I think this is a team that would probably love to trade down and stack up an asset for next year when they probably need to go more aggressively after a rookie quarterback on a rookie contract. So I think that would be a great situation for them, but nothing they've done here changes anything. I would even say at 24, if there's a guard on the board, you could still take a guard too. Even after signing Zion Johnson, there's nothing shifted here for the Cleveland Browns either.
Zion Johnson is the player in the back of my head that like keeps me from calling guards high floor just because they're good. Like there's that lazy like inclination to just be like, oh yeah, 10-year starter, he's like a solid guard.
Yeah,
I thought so many of those cliches about Zion Johnson, and then like you watch him on tape, it's like, whoa, I did not see that coming.
yeah. Washington Commanders, again, we can start going through some of these a little bit quicker. Odafe Owe gets a massive deal, 4 years, $100 million, 68 guaranteed. Tim Settle back to Washington. Amik Robertson, they do re-sign Laramie Tunsil for another 2 years, bring back a backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota. And they actually re-signed all of their offensive line except for center, where they cut Tyler Biotish, but they re-signed Nick Allegretti. They re-signed Andrew Wiley as well. So nothing really changes here. The board is still the board for the Commanders. Moving on. Saints. Dude, the Saints actually had a really productive free agency period, I think.
I will say with Washington, to come back to that, Odafe Owe, when I did my big edge rusher study over the summer, um, I thought he was one of the most underrated edge rushers in the NFL last year. I'll watch his tape in a couple months, but he was more productive this year. So um, on paper, I think that's a pretty good signing, and
Mhm.
it gives them potential to have like next year. I could see them having like two mid-range number two edges. You know, if they get
Mhm.
Ruben Bain, uh, Odafe
Yeah.
Owe, it's kind of like the speed and power version of like a number two edge.
I was gonna say
Um,
there's nobody else, no other edge on that roster that's still stopping you from doubling up too, even though you just
right.
spent $100 million on one. Uh,
Yep.
the Saints just invested more assets into their offensive line, 4 years, 61 million for David Edwards, and that goes along with all the other first round picks they've invested up front. This is just like such a I don't think Jeremiah Love is getting to 8. This is just like this is where a wide receiver comes off the board. Like this, how does a wide receiver? I guess an edge because they haven't signed an edge yet either, and they desperately need edge help as well. But like edge and wide receiver, New Orleans Saints here as well.
Yeah, they joined the long list of teams that need those positions. Who was who is the best receiver free agent
Was it
this year
Wandale
besides
Robinson?
Alec Pierce?
Alec Peters. Oh yeah.
Is there anyone on Alec Pierce's level?
Let's
Mike
flip
Evans
over the
kind of.
cap real fast. I don't think so. Wandale Robinson, I think, got the second most money.
See, this
I
is
mean
where
Tyreek Hill, but is Tyreek Hill
no.
worth that? Debo Samuel, not really. Mike Evans, but he signed for like $14 million a year with the Niners. Like
Yeah.
way low on that deal. Uh, the other receivers we're talking about here are like Christian Kirk, Darnell Mooney, De'Ami Brown, Tutu Atwell, Curtis Samuel, Marquise Brown, Jawan Jennings, DeAndre Hopkins. If the 34-year-old DeAndre Hopkins moves you at all, but that's about what we're looking at here on the market.
Free agency is always like a really good kind of illustration of how I view positional value because to me, it's all about scarcity. Like, I don't care about the whole contract thing that a lot of people care about. It's all just like when you get to March, what are the positions that you can't find on the open market? And those are the most
Mhm.
valuable positions. So, like,
Yep.
scrolling through the list, it's like, I don't know if I've seen a tackle, you get some like low end edge rushers, veteran receivers, but there are a few positions that like you can't get outside of using a draft pick.
Mhm. I tend to agree,
This
and I
year,
think yeah, the
not
market's gonna agree
super
with you
relevant
too.
for this year because in the first round, like go ahead, take the
All bets are off.
linebackers,
Yeah,
safeties, it doesn't matter.
yeah. Kansas City Chiefs here. Again, a team with 2 first-round picks after the trade of Trent McDuffie to the Rams as well. Signed Kenneth Walker. We can stop mocking Jeremiah Love to the Chiefs, I think, there, even though I don't even know if he was getting that far. Alohi Gilman on the back end. I don't think that disqualifies you from taking a Caleb Downs still because he's really replacing Brian Cook, who signed with the Bengals. Kyrie's Tonga does give them a nice defensive tackle, stout defensive tackle up front. Bring back Travis Kelce, bring back Tyquan Thornton. Tyquan Thornton's not stopping you from drafting a wide receiver. Uh, they could still use a tackle. They just cut Jawan Taylor. We'll see if Jalen Moore is gonna start for them again at $15 million. That's kind of starter-ish money, but he didn't really start for them last year, so they could still view him as a swing option. I know they just drafted Joshua Simmons in the first round last year, but I think this is like a Moe Noah Fano team.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
like the first because I could definitely see that the first place my mind went was this is a Ruben Bain team, and then I was thinking like So I've kind of like I kind of overrate this receiver class based on where I think the NFL views it. Cause like if I'm doing a what I would do mock draft, I've got Carnell Tate and Jordan Tyson going like top 7 or 8 pretty much every
Mhm.
time. But I think in reality, like you said, the Saints could be taking the first receiver off the board, and then like that starts the run with the Chiefs. So I could see them going first round receiver. But yeah, like you said, I mean, Jalen Moore, he got like the deal, like the you're the best available deal, but like we're gonna pay you like a starter, but we don't actually think you're a starter. It's like what you have to do with offensive tackles.
Yeah.
I would trust like spin the wheel of a rookie over Jalen Moore personally.
Yeah. I think I would too.
First round rookie.
Yeah. The Bengals. So they signed Brian Cook 3 years, 42. Boye Mafe 3 years, 60. Brought back Dalton Reisner. This defense is still a freaking mess, man. Like, they don't have any defensive tackles. I mean, BJ Hill, TJ Slayton. are their starters with Jackson McKinley, Chris Jenkins, Jordan Jefferson. Edge rushers, they're probably gonna roll with Miles Murphy, Shamar Stewart. You invested a lot in them, and you just brought in
Yeah.
Boye Mafe as well. You get to the linebackers, we're talking Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter. You get to safeties, and we're still talking about Geno Stone, Jordan Battle, Brian Cook. Is that good enough to stop you from taking Caleb Downs? I don't think so. Um, you get to corner, we're talking DJ Turner, Dax Hill, Cambritt Taylor, Josh Newton.
Hey, that's pretty
Like,
good. That's pretty good CV room.
that's
DJ Turner, baller.
yeah.
Dax Hill, baller at corner. Cam Taylor Britt is like the most inconsistent player I've ever seen.
This is
I don't
like the
hate I don't
absolute
hate the corner room. And I actually don't
okay.
hate the edge room
The edge
with
room's fine.
Boye Mafe. Like I think Shamar Stewart is gonna at least be decent.
Yeah.
And then Miles Murphy has looked pretty good, like, as he's gradually gotten more playing time. They don't have any stars, but yeah, it's linebacker, safety, and just like the nervous system of the defense. Like, I feel like there's nobody reading their keys like on time. There's nobody taking proper angles.
Right.
Um, I've got like 5 explosive plays running through my head of like Demetrius Knight or Barrett Carter just putting up some pitiful tackling attempt.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't hate going 2 linebackers again in this class. They won't, but like
This is the floor for Sonny Styles, 10. And I mean,
yeah.
again, we think he's worth going way higher than that, but this feels like the floor for both Downs and Styles.
Mhm.
Like if one of them are on the board, the odds of both of them being on the board, I think, are very narrow. But this feels like the floor for both those players. Miami Dolphins. Obviously, the big splash here today with the Dolphins was cutting Tua and signing Malik Willis to a 3-year, $67 million deal, guaranteeing it for about the first 2 years there, year and a half, really, with 45 million guaranteed there. Not 2 years. Yeah, we'll call it's 2 years. And then they also retained Greg Dulcich. Again, with this team, we usually mock right tackle. We usually mock corner. I think we're still going to mock right tackle. We're still going to mock corner here. I think corner is the
Mhm.
obvious need here with this team. What corner that is a big question mark as well because I know at 12 Dallas wants a corner and at 13 the Rams need a corner and so like that I think 11 could be where we start to see that corner run start to happen.
If only they didn't need a corner so badly. I think the Dolphins could be a sneaky Kenyon Sadiq spot.
Ooh, that's true.
It's just I don't that would be really hard to justify if you've got like Mansour Delane, Jermon McCoy sitting there and like we're gonna take
Yeah.
a flex tight end. I don't know. Um, yeah, the Dolphins seem pretty easy corner still. I am fascinated to watch Malik Willis and see how this turns out.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
talk about a minuscule sample size.
Right, but the spot starting stuff is pretty
Oh
good.
yeah.
It's yeah, really, and he's not turning the football over. That's the big thing. All right, Dallas Cowboys, also another team still in the hunt for a linebacker, still in the hunt for secondary help. They did sign safety Jalen Thompson, um, supplementary draft legend Jalen Thompson, that is, and then they trade for Rashawn Gary. They tag George Pickens. They tender Brandon Aubrey. The team still needs corners bad. This is still a corner need team. After re-signing Javonte Williams, running backs probably not probably. It is off the board early for this team. Again, corner. Kind of, we'll see what happens with Pickens. Could be a sneaky wide receiver team, but I don't think they're going to let that guy walk. Um, Potentially a sneaky city team. Who's their tight end?
Uh,
Oh, it's Jake Ferguson.
Jacob Ferguson. Yeah.
Yeah, is Jake Ferguson going to stop you from drafting Kenyon Sadiq?
No, I think
No.
they could coexist for sure.
Yeah. But
Kind of
again,
a
corner is the big need here.
potentially a sneaky right tackle team.
Ooh, replace
I
Terrence
could see
Steele.
them like thinking this
Yeah,
is a really deep class, and maybe there's a run.
yeah.
So that would be the wild card position, I would say.
I dig it. I dig it. Rams. Rams were an obvious corner team as well, and they just traded for Trent McDuffie, and then they signed Jalen Watson. So probably off the first round corner here, unless, they really wanna apex Trent McDuffie the way that the Chiefs kinda apexed Trent McDuffie, and if that's the case, then I think you could still draft another corner here.
That's what the
This
Rams did
feels like
with Jalen Ramsey.
yeah, it is what the Rams did with Jalen Ramsey, so in that case, corner could still be on the board. This feels like 1 Sadiq or 2 tackle. Like, right tackle, big need. Big need for this team as well, so
You think Sadiq?
with Terrence Ferguson, I don't think Terrence Ferguson stopped me from taking him.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
Higbee's only on 2 for 8, you know?
that's true. Yeah, Sadiq is almost like there's only a handful of teams that actually don't have a spot for Sadiq, you know?
Yeah.
Like he the flex tight end is it doesn't fit with every type of offense, but there are a lot of different ways that you can get them involved. So that's true. I think I honestly like wouldn't hate corner in the second round
Mhm.
again and just like because free agent corners, I mean, there might not be a single thing that I trust
Less.
less like
Yeah.
on this planet than a free agent corner. So who knows there?
Yeah, the
Um,
issue is they don't come back on the clock till 61.
yeah. So trade down, right tackle, potentially a corner. I feel like they could use a, a safety as well, not at the same level as corner and like receiver, like everyone.
Sneaky Thieneman spot at 13.
That's I was gonna say that's early, but that's not that early.
Yeah. Alright, 14's Vegas again, we've already talked about them. 15, Buccaneers. Kenneth Gainwell, Alex Anzalone, Cade Otton retained. So this is a Sadiq mock spot. Typically, I think retaining Kenyon or, Cade Otton probably. I know that, like, they could use an F tight end, but, like, I tend to think they're gonna go more late day 2, early day 3
Um,
F kind of player than Sadiq. Eliminates the first round linebacker here, which tends to happen a lot with this team. Like, this is a CJ Allen spot, stuff like that. Um, I, uh, I think this team is, like, edge to the
yeah,
max. Like, this team needs an edge. So when we're mock drafting, we're edge maxing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Uh,
yeah.
so
It's
yeah,
just so hard to be an edge team and be picking like 15 to 20 because I mean you can bank on the Ruben Baines slide, and then if he falls and you get him at 15, that's great.
yeah.
But other than that, I mean, you're looking
You
at
gotta talk yourself into Cassius Howell or Mason Thomas,
yeah,
Akeem Mesidor, or something like that at 15.
yeah. For me, it would be Folker or R. Mason Thomas probably, but
Mhm.
not like if I was a GM and I took either of those players at 15, like I would be
I'd feel
apologizing
really
to the
bad about it.
fan base in my post game or in my post draft press conference.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Detroit Lions at 17, left tackle. Like,
yeah,
this is a left tackle team. Taylor Decker requests his release. They signed Cade Mays, so they shore up the center after the Frank Ragnow retirement, coming out of retirement, failing his physical, going back into retirement. So this feels like is this the floor for Monroe Freeling?
yeah, probably. He's
Maybe a Vega Ioane team at guard
See, I
too.
think Vega's a much better player and much better prospect,
Yeah,
ignoring position. So I wouldn't hate Vega here. Freeling is tough because like I love the flashes with Freeling, and if you just watch the second half of his season, I feel like it's so easy to talk yourself into OT1, and then you go back to some older clips from like week 6, week 5, and he's kind of getting worked unlike uh, any other first round tackles in this class, really. Um, so yeah, it's really a tale of two seasons for Freeling, but I am buying the development because it's not just like random changes in results. You clearly see the improved hand accuracy that really led to his success.
yeah. And again, like when I'm thinking about a young player and their best football still being ahead of them, I care a lot more about that end of the season than I do the
Oh
beginning
yeah,
of the season too. So I think I can live with that a little bit more. as well. All right, Minnesota Vikings. This team has had to do a lot of work to get cap compliant. So, as you could guess, their moves have been relatively minimal. They signed cornerback James Pierre, which isn't stopping you from adding another corner. They retained Eric Wilson, which isn't really stopping you from drafting a linebacker early. Jalen Redmond, really good player, exclusive rights tender there. Ivan Pace, a low tender. That's about the extent of the names that we can talk about here with the Vikings. I think every option's still on the table for this team that we've talked about up to this point.
Yeah, just like most versatile DB, best DB on the board is pretty much where I've been going in the first round. Um, Spencer Fano at center would be my
Ooh,
one wild card suggestion.
for the
I think
Panthers
like
or for
to
the
me, Fano at center kind of opens up a lot of potential in the first round of this class because like I don't love any center like in the second round. Um, so if you want to get a day one starter, I think it's your best bet is a tackle or guard convert.
Yep.
And
I don't disagree with that.
Fano has the body type. He's got the skill
He
set.
does.
Snapped at the combine.
Yep. I agree with that. Carolina Panthers had themselves a day, and that obviously what I'm alluding to is signing Kenny Pickett to a 1-year, $7.5 million deal. Like that's earth-shattering news. But what is interesting about $7.5 million that is kind of like competition money.
Yeah.
So now is Kenny Pickett a competitor for Bryce Young? Maybe. I mean, that they just paid him to be, but like, should that scare Bryce Young? No, it shouldn't. But other than that, Jalen Phillips, 4 years, 120 mil. Devin Lloyd, 3 years, 45 mil. So they had themselves a day here. Carolina's kind of mocked all over the map for us. Like you mocked him, Caleb Lomu last time we did a mock. I guess edge rusher's probably not going to happen. They drafted two good in the second round last year, and then just paid 120 million to Jalen Phillips. I think that Caleb Banks, Peter Woods is still firmly on the table for this team at defensive tackle. Um, Probably not linebacker. Again, what CJ Allen? I'm probably not taking CJ Allen now that I just signed Devin Lloyd. Um, and then obviously corner opposite of JC Horn, because I mean they did retain Robert Rochelle and Caleb Evans, but neither of those two players are stopping you from. Mike Jackson's a fine player, but you can upgrade from Mike Jackson too.
Do we think the Panthers are the floor for Dylan Thieneman?
Ooh, the floor. See, I hate having this conversation about the second safety in the draft class, about what's the
Yeah,
floor
that's
for the
true.
second safety being drafted. That's a tough sell. Um, that would be a good fit too, though. That would be a good look.
I'm
Yeah, I
interested.
honestly kind of think at 20 Dallas is. Even
Yeah.
after signing Jalen Thompson, and they have Deron Bland, but Deron Bland does a lot of, like, again, apexy stuff, so
Yeah, I'm interested to see how close Thieneman goes to Downs. Um, I mean, I've got a pretty comfortable gap between them on my grades, but man, Thienemann is a strong prospect with, he's got 3 years of quality tape, 2 different schemes, like really
yeah,
is kind of a B2B plus floor, like at most skills, I feel like. Super versatile. So yeah, I don't see like a huge to me, like after Downs and then after CB1, Thieneman might be my top DB on the board. It would be like
yeah,
him or Jermod McCoy. And I just have no idea like what to make of McCoy.
right, right. I mean, I could see Thieneman going as high as, like, 13 to Los Angeles, 14 to
Yeah.
Vegas, 16 to the Jets, like, those are all, like Vegas and the Jets, that's their second first-round pick, so, like, it's kind of those teams don't get luxury picks, but it's kind of a luxury in that regard.
Right.
Yeah. Moving on to the Steelers here. Biggest move here was trading for Michael Pittman after the Colts re-signed Alec Pierce to that big contract. So they trade for Michael Pittman. I think it was just like a pick swap, like a 6 and a 5 were swapped out. And then they extend him for 3 years, 59 million. They do sign Jamel Dean. They do sign Rico Dowdle. I think giving Jamel Dean $12 million a year does probably take you out of the first round corner market,
Mhm.
which we did mock them Jermon McCoy our last corner or our last mock draft because They're also going to have pay Joey Porter Jr. this offseason as well. So that's a lot of money invested in that cornerback room. They also re-signed Asante Samuel, who kind of gives you nickel slash depth. Um, this team,
I love getting somebody like Rico Dowdle to help make your quarterback of the future's life easier. Ty Simpson's gonna be handing it off to him. First round pick Ty Simpson,
Tyson.
gonna be running behind Rico Dowdle. Yeah, I think Ty Simpson is still kinda like, off to the side as a
Mhm.
potential pick.
I do too.
I
Steelers
wonder
fans
how
hate the
much.
idea of it, but
Yeah, I mean, he's better than Kenny Pickett. At least I like him better as a
yeah.
prospect than Kenny Pickett. Incredibly tough because like there is a huge split between the first 8 or however many games and then the end of the season. But as we've talked about extensively, like there's just limited traits. You've got injury durability concerns, inexperienced, plus in the last 4 to 5 games of experience, not exactly clean tape. So yeah, that's a lot of red flags that would keep me from taking him in the first round personally. But um, yeah, it could the desperation will get you.
It sure will. Other needs, obviously, I don't think wide receiver is going to happen either because they just invested a ton of money over the past 2 seasons into the wide receiver room. Um, there's some buzz out there that Patrick Queen could be on the trade block. So this could be a CJ Allen spot. I think 21 CJ Allen is actually a really good fit team range and need wise. I just think that CJ Allen right there would be a decent fit for the Steelers too.
Yeah, I like
All
that.
right.
Him and Peyton Wilson.
Oh yeah. The Los Angeles Chargers. So the Chargers land
Guard.
Tyler Biotish. They land Cole Strange, probably a swing utility player at 2 years for 13 million at 6.5 million a year. Charlie Kolar, they get a nice little blocking tight end in there as well, and Alec Ingold as well. They retain Tier Tart. They bring back Khalil Mack. They bring back Trevor Penning. They did a lot on their offensive line, but I think two of the three that we're talking about here are kind of swing utility players in Strange
Yeah.
and in Penning. I think the only player you pen in as a starter is Biotish here, obviously. So I do think that a lot is still on the table here. Do they invest a first rounder in a guard now? I think it's still possible, but I think we're probably looking defensive tackle. I think we're probably even still looking edge with Odafe Owe walking. Um, I think those are probably where we're looking here, right? Defensive trenches.
Is this the floor for Vega?
Yeah, I mean, I think the floor for Vegas is like
Is
17.
higher, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
he's
yeah, so if
he's a Dan Campbell player. Like, there's no shot Dan
oh,
Campbell
yeah.
doesn't look at that dude and be like, I want that guy.
So assuming Vega's gone and you don't wanna go Basantis or Emmanuel Pregnon at, 22, is that where they're picking? Yeah, 22.
Yep.
Edge is kinda bleak outside of Tua Pelotu,
Yeah, I think this is like an R.
like,
Mason
for the
Thomas.
long term. So
Yeah,
I think that could be a spot for sure. Um,
Caleb Banks.
yeah, it could be Caleb Banks or, like, one of these. I could see this being, like, maybe not his floor, but, Caden Proctor, slide him into guard.
Mhm.
Um, could see that. But, yeah, I like addressing center because it's a lot easier to find guards than centers.
Yep, agreed. The markets are doing that thing again where they wanna bet on the cheat. They wanna bet on the Chargers. They're like the Chargers just seem like America's team until they bottom out every year. But even on FanDuel, this team has the 3rd best odds to win the AFC right now,
Wow.
which is fascinating. Um, behind the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, uh, with the best odds to win the AFC. So that's fascinating. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have not signed a free agent. They retained Jordan Davis, and that's where we sit. This team does not have any restructurable contracts, so they are not sitting in a very pretty place in terms of the ability to spend money right now. There's some buzz out there they might trade Jalen Carter. So that's a lot going on. A lot going on there. They lose N'Kobe Dean. They lose Jalen Phillips. This is an interesting place for this football team to sit right now. If they trade AJ Brown, they're going to eat a lot of money if they do it before June 1st. So like really interesting spot here. But if you don't trade him before June 1st, you're not getting an asset in this year's pick to add cheaper contracts back into your roster. So it's kind of like they're kind of stuck in no man's land. They got a Super Bowl out of it, so I'm pretty sure they're pretty happy with that. But yeah, the Eagles are in a little bit of a rough spot here.
Do the Eagles have the widest range of potential positions that they could draft in the first round? Because like
You
I
could
could
you could
I could make an
plan for
argument
Lane
for
Johnson. You could
damn
plan
near
for
everyone. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think so. 'Cause, like Landon Dickerson might retire. I
exactly.
mean, outside of like Cam Jurgens at center, yeah, you could make a case for probably not Mailata either. You're not probably looking to replace him, but
Because it's like
you could
anyone
make a case
anyone
for
good might be a cap casualty or like,
mhm,
eventually age regression. So basically it's like players that they drafted last year are
yeah.
like the ones that are off the table.
It's just a Peter Wood spot, the blue blood program person who slips down the board that the Eagles just take like they do every year.
That would make a lot of sense for sure.
Yeah. All right, we've already talked about Browns, Bears. Kobe Bryant, 3 years, $40 million. Devin Bush, 3 years, $30 million. Neville Gallimore, 212. They trade for Garrett Bradbury. They re-signed Braxton Jones for 1 year, $5 million up to 10 years. That's like we talked so much about this tackle group of free agents and how the market was going to boom. And I think the tackle, like Jermaine Illuminor only getting 13 million is like bottoming out the tackle market. Like Rasheed Walker hasn't signed yet. That dude's not getting 25 million the way he thought he was going to get 25 million. There's no shot. There's no shot. So interesting stuff here. Again, with the Bears, we typically go Caden McDonald. I think that's still very firmly on the table. I think even with Braxton Jones getting 1 for 5, they might want to run it back with Jones and Trapilo for one more year just because Trapilo is a second round pick. But I think left tackle could still be on the board here. Yeah.
It's
There's a lot to
DT
like
and edge
edge.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
again, like I like the DT options way more, assuming who's going to be available then. So, um, yeah, I would probably go Caden McDonald, Caleb Banks if he falls,
Hmm.
Peter Woods. Yeah,
Yep.
those would be my
Yep.
three.
The Buffalo Bills solved their wide receiver issues. They traded for DJ Moore, the world's
Mm,
most consistent and reliable receiver. So, they don't have to they don't have to draft a wide receiver anymore, right, James?
yeah, that's an interesting strategy. I wonder if he's going to go on a tirade against the media when he has a press conference this year. Did you see he did another thing where, like, so the Keon Coleman thing? There was that video of him up in the combine press conference, like, or press box, and he was like hoping that Keon Coleman ran a slow 40 time so he could draft him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he's up there with DJ again, watching Carnell Tate run the 40, and he like made
Yeah.
the exact same comment. It's like, I agree with you, dude, but wrong
Yeah.
messenger.
Right. 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 So for the Bills, wide receiver still very much a need. Defensive tackle, I think, still a need. I think edge still a need. That's kind of what we're talking about with this team right here. Guard, they could even take a guard. They just lost David Edwards to the Saints as well. Um, Probably a little bit too rich for Basantis Pregnon here at 26, even still. So that's probably a round 2 kind of priority there.
Yeah, it's basically, I mean, this is where I like the receiver options. I think they start to open up with they're potentially looking at Casey Conception, Denzel Boston, Omar Cooper, a couple other ones that would still be on the board. So I like Conception for the Bills. I think they need
Mhm.
to prioritize speed, and he's based on his physical stature, you might think he's kind of redundant as like a gadgety type of guy. He is good after the catch, but he's at his best against press man.
Agreed. Agreed. All right. Houston Texans add Reed Blankenship, 3 years, 24 million. And Dominic Robertson, 1 year up to 4. Outside of that, they did a lot of keeping their own guys. Danielle Hunter, the NFL's biggest bag getter, resigns another contract of 1 year, $40 million. He's going to go do it again next year. At Ingram, they do resign a guard. They kept an offensive lineman and didn't trade him. Couldn't have traded him. He was an unrestricted free agent. Kept Dalton Schultz for another year. Kept Sheldon Rankins for 2 more years. Trent Brown, 1 year up to 7 million. People are like, that's the right tackle. We're penciling him in. That's swing tackle money to me. 1 year up to 7 million. Like, this is a very obvious tackle team still. Like, this is very obviously an offensive tackle team to me, sitting out here at 28.
Yeah, I think Ursary's a good player for the long term, but
Yep.
definitely need tackle and interior help.
Yep.
So yeah, O line is where I'm looking for the Texans. Also, if maybe there's a tackle run and DTs start to slip, I think defensive tackle could be in play. I think. I mean, they don't really have like high impact linebackers.
Mhm.
Not that I mean, Aziz Al-Shaair is pretty solid, but could upgrade if like CJ Allen falls to them potentially.
Yep. Denver Broncos also didn't sign a free agent today. They retained 5 of their own. Justin Strnad gets 3 years, 18. Tight end Adam Troutman gets 3 of 17. Dayton Flyers legend. Go Flyers. Alex Singleton gets 2 for 15 and a half. Sam Ellinger gets 1 for 2. And J.K. Dobbins got 2 for 20, which only 8 million guaranteed. So it's like a 1 year deal effectively. But on paper, 2 for 20 there as well. To me, this is like the Omar Cooper team. Omar Cooper, Casey Conception make way too much sense for this wide receiver room and for this Broncos team, this Broncos offense. That's what I keep coming back to here with this team.
As they're currently constructed, I agree. I think that they're going to need a Cortland Sutton replacement pretty soon, and I think that it wouldn't surprise me if they like Denzel Boston in that role. I think Boston's kind of underrated, like as an athlete. He's got a lot of juice. I think people talk about him like he's like stiff and can't move. I'm interested to see what he tests like, but yeah, I think for like with the current receiver room, yeah, I would go Cooper, but I think Boston could be a long term play.
Mm-hmm. We already talked about the Chiefs again, who would be back on the clock here. The Patriots signed Draymond Jones, 3 years, 39 and a half. The Patriots, we tend to draft like Cassius Howard, one of those smaller, like stand up pass rushers. I mean, Draymond can condense down, so I guess that's not necessarily the case. He's done a lot throughout his career. Like he played almost exclusively defensive tackle, and then
Yeah.
he went to Seattle, and they tried to do him at edge, like stand him up at edge, and it didn't go well. They cut him. He went to Tennessee and then Baltimore. He's bounced around all over the place. So I mean, Draymond can do a little bit. Maybe he doesn't take edge off the board for you, but to me, this is the Patriots' endless pursuit of a wide receiver. This is the Denzel Boston like dream landing spot.
Yeah, I think I'm with you unless there was a much better tackle that was still
True.
on the board, or obviously edge rusher, but
Max
I don't
Honecker.
that see I would go Boston over Honiker, but if you're looking at like Blake Miller, Caleb Lomu sitting
Hmm.
there, I feel like to come away with one of those players at 31 in this class like is an insane value that I wouldn't be expecting going into the draft. So I would be pretty eager to take that over like reaching for a worse edge rusher. Um yeah, the the late first early second edge class I'm just not a huge fan of.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm watching through. I've watched through a lot of these guys, and it just feels like I'm on this streak of just like fourth round grade, fourth round grade, fourth round grade, fourth round grade. It's just like the Oprah thing. Everybody's getting fourth round grades.
Then I got to go through and rank my fourth round grades. I always have
Yeah.
the same thing where I get like a huge clump of fourth round grades and then I got to go split them up.
Yep. Seahawks. All right. Their big one was obviously re-signing Rashid Shaheed, 3 years, 51 mil with 34.7 guaranteed. Also brought back Joshua Job. Obviously lost Kobe Bryant. Reek Woolman probably not coming back with the Job re-signing. They brought back Drake Thomas. They tendered George Alani. They tendered Ty Okada. Right guard still continues to be the need. I think after losing Boye and Mafe, you can talk yourself into edge a little bit here as well with this team. And I think, I mean, does a third safety come off the board in the first round here? I don't think Thieneman's going to be there 32.
No, I don't.
I don't think a third safety comes off the board here.
Who would it be for you?
On
McNeil
my board, it
Orange?
would be Genesis Smith, but
I feel like if I'm predicting what happens, I feel like the most likely way that the board falls is that there's like one, first round ish corner available. Say it's Colton Hood or whatever, and it just is an easy pick for them at 32 as the Reek Woolen replacement. I think the fallback option from that would then be like Chase Bizantis, Emmanuel Pregnon uh,
Mhm.
at guard. I mean, going guard back to back 2 years in a row, not ideal, but they also didn't they not take a guard in the first round for like decades or
A
something?
long
So
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're making up
Yeah.
for lost time.
Yeah. All right, let's burn through these teams that don't have first round picks real fast. Baltimore Ravens, big move, obviously trading for Max Crosby. They also re-signed John Simpson and Tyler Huntley to back up quarterback money there. Center now a big need. I actually think right guard is also a big need, and then I mean potentially you got to talk about replacing Ronnie Stanley at some point at left tackle too. Um, I think that Namdi Matabuike is trending in the right direction potentially, but I also think that yeah, maybe another safety team need here as well. You could talk yourself into, and then Mark Andrews a little bit older, likely just walks. I mean, this is too early, I think, for Stowers at 45, but like the NFL seems to like Stowers, so Stowers at 45.
Uh, that would be hard to sell me on that. I would be, although I do agree that it's a need. I would go like Max Clare maybe, because
Mhm.
I just think he has better tape.
Yeah,
For the Ravens, though, I'm taking like whoever, if anyone falls of Basantis and
Assante's.
Pregnon,
Hmm.
I'm getting the right guard, the current right guard up out of there, putting one of them in the lineup,
Yeah,
and then probably going second round D tackle or a second pick D tackle, like maybe a Lee Hunter if the vertical jump causes them to fall.
yeah.
Christian Miller might be a little bit too early,
Needy. Yeah,
might
they'd
be
be
out of his
needy.
range. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, the Dominique Orange, there's some solid like there just aren't game wrecking like complete number one defensive tackles in this class.
yeah,
There's a lot of really good DT2s. Like there's a lot of guys that I think 6 years from now are going to be rated like 79 on Madden.
yeah, yeah. That's a good
That's how I
call.
would phrase it.
The Colts. Arden Key, 2 years, 20 million. Alec Pierce, obviously the big one, 4 for 116. Transition tag Daniel Jones. This team needs a linebacker. This team needs edge rushers. This team, you could probably get away with Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner for one more year, but you might want to start planning for the future at defensive tackle. Um, yeah, there's a lot going on here. Right tackle. Um, there's a lot going on here with Indianapolis that you could take this in a million directions at the 47th overall pick.
Yeah, that would be a Ty Simpson. That would be my first like Ty Simpson pick that I would feel comfortable with.
Yeah, that
Like,
feels
hey, this is
good.
a really good pick. I'm excited to see like what he does. As opposed to like the Steelers taking him in the first round and you're just kind of holding your breath. Uh yeah, edge. I mean, they've invested so much in edge, and it still feels like they've got all twos and threes. Uh Hopefully Latu can take a step. I think linebacker could be
Yeah,
a
Josiah
potential
Trotter at
spot here.
47.
Yeah, Josiah
I agree.
Trotter. Yeah, there's a lot of options that they could go with for sure.
Agreed. Atlanta Falcons. Jahan Dotson 2 for 15. Nick Folk, Jake Bailey. They really went on the special teams here. Austin Hooper 1 for 325. Cameron Thomas 1 for 3.1. Tua on a vet minimum deal here as well. Olamide Zacchaeus, Christian Harris, Kyle Pitts was tagged as well. You know, I think the edge is still a need here at this team with the James Pierce stuff that just went down. It doesn't look like it's trending in the right direction there. Cam Thomas isn't stopping you from taking an edge in the second round. This is another team that I think, you just lost Tyler Algier as well as second round too early to get a back to pair with the Bijan Robinson. Um, there's quite a few directions this team could go as well.
For the Falcons, I'm sitting there at 48, and I'm just praying that Malachi Lawrence doesn't go off
Mm,
the board. If not, I might have to pivot to like Gabe Akis or maybe like Anthony Lucas would probably be my next guy. But
yeah, I
yeah, I
like
do
it.
think I do think actually more so than most years, like the second to third round edge depth, I think is pretty solid in this class.
Mhm. I think I would agree with that too. I've been watching through it. Akis, Malachi Lawrence, definitely in that tier for sure. We'll see. I'm curious what the NFL thinks on Keldrick Falk. I really am about where they kind of slot him in at. But Green Bay Packers 52. They trade for Zaire Franklin with the Colts. They re-signed Sean Ryan, guard center ish, and they re-signed swing tackle Darian Kinnard. Again, when we're talking about these teams picking at like around 50, it's so hard to pin down a need and be like, this is what they're gonna do.
Especially when you don't know how the board is
Right.
stacking up exactly. Um,
I mean, I
for
think they could go wide receiver
I think
again. Who knows?
corner to me, corner is
Yeah.
like the number one need.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, yeah, I didn't even you've got Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, free agents after 2026.
Yeah.
So yeah, whatever's left of this corner class, Chris Johnson potentially. I would have said TJ Hall until he ran the slowest 40 time of any corner. I mean, there are good like day two and early day three corner options every year. A lot of them this year are nickels exclusively, or ideally. So it's not as deep in terms of
Yeah.
boundary guys, but I think they should be able to find a good option.
Yeah. I think so too. I'm trying to think of like a longer armed one that some team might fall in love
Davison
with.
Igbinosun,
Davis and Nick.
Julian
Yeah.
Neal, the Stephen F. Austin, Charles Demings.
Which are at 50, at
Oh, not at
52.
56.
Oh, okay.
I just mean in general that would be
Yeah.
on their board. Um,
Yeah.
I could see him. He's a Kyle Shanahan third round pick.
Okay. Okay.
Like
Love it.
shouldn't be a third round pick, but I could see it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Last team here, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Didn't sign anybody. They re-signed Monteric Brown. They re-signed Dennis Gardeck. They re-signed Quentin Morris here. I think I mean, I don't love the running backs in this class, but this feels like a Mike Washington or Jadarian Price kind of spot with Travis Etienne walking. Um, if they trade Brian Thomas Jr., obviously wide receiver opens up a pretty big need, especially with Travis Hunter. Like they've come out and said he's going to play predominantly defense next year. So
That's what I was
even
gonna
if Brian
say.
Thomas is there, I think wide receiver is still a need as well for this team. Um, Again, a lot of directions this team could go as well. Corner, the Greg Newsome trade didn't really work out. He's on the market, so yeah, quite a few ways to go here.
Yeah, corner, D tackle, I think. And then where's their first pick?
56.
56. So there could potentially be a tackle worth taking that falls there. I think you're looking into the like Dunker, Caleb Tiernan range potentially, which I would not be a huge fan
Oof.
of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably go receiver. I mean, they heading into this past year, like the receiver position for Jacksonville looked incredibly promising, and now there's a chance that they have like really nothing to build around if they trade Brian Thomas and move Travis Hunter at corner. So need to replenish that position for sure.
Yep. 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 All right. Well, that's our post free agency primer here, kind of updated team needs and kind of how that shakes up what we've typically done in mock drafts. We'll be back this week. I think we actually have it planned out. We're going to do mock drafts for every team with 2 first round picks tomorrow, mock drafts for every team with no first round picks the day after that. And then we'll get into running backs at the end of the week here and talk some running backs. So that's what we got scheduled for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, this has been another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast. See ya.